Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. This is a free online workshop for those who want to get their California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all of the parts of the license application to give you practical tips to help you complete the application correctly and to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and qualifications in order to get your California contractor's license. We will also help get you ready for your licensing exams and give you a link to a video that shows you exactly what to expect on your test date. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, the governing agency responsible for regulating the California construction industry. My name is Anna Rodriguez, Enforcement Supervisor. Joining us today is Fode Garagoslo, Licensing Supervisor. Good morning, Fode.
Good morning, Anna. CSLB is overseen by a 15-member board that directs administrative policy for our operations. Our board is made up of 10 public members, including 1 labor representative, 1 local building official, and 1 representative of a statewide senior citizen organization, and 5 contractors. Appointments are made by the governor and the state legislature.
Please note, CSLB test centers are open. Applicants will have to take safety precautions on test date. That includes wearing a mask and more. We'll go into those details a little bit later. If you're watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to participate, you'll need to join us via WebEx. There is a banner with a link on the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. That is also where you can download this presentation to follow along. The presentation file includes clickable bonus links that appear on slides throughout this workshop. We are going to be presenting a lot of information at you, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive this video of this workshop and put it on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it again. To ask a question, you're going to want to use the Q&A feature, not the chat feature. On the bottom right of your screen, you'll find the Q&A feature. Make sure you send your question to all panelists. Finally, we tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how you can document your work experience and also what credit you can get for your military service or your education. Those questions are fine, but we would ask that you wait to send those questions until after you see that part of the workshop. We will go through your questions at the end of our presentation, which should take about 45 minutes.
The information obtained during this webcast is not, nor is intended to be legal advice. While this webcast contains general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2021 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher LexisNexis. There are links for both at the bottom of the screen.
So here's a list of what we're going to be covering today. We will take you through the process of applying for a California contractor's license. First, we're going to talk about who needs a license, and then why get a contractor's license, the minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license, and what credits you might qualify for. We'll talk about the different types of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications, including our new B2 residential remodeling classification. We will spend a lot of time giving you tips on how to fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We're going to talk about fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help get you ready for the exam or exams that you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before you get your license. For example, the bond and insurance.
First, we will take a look at who needs a license. Here in California, A state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials. The law doesn't let you break down a project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the 500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what is the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. We have got a link to that code at the top of the page if you download the presentation. I will read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part we underline. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, proposes to have the capacity to undertake, or submit a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. In the other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself, who should get a license? Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. It also allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with the fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and/or $5,000 fine, and potential administrative fines anywhere between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license, and you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get your license? First, it is important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. Here is the short list of minimum qualifications you will need. You must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or valid Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journeyperson, foreperson, supervising employee, or contractor in the trade being applied for. Or you can also get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. We will spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in a few minutes.
It may be possible for you to substitute your education technical training, and apprenticeship training for some of the required experience. We tend to get a lot of questions about this. First, CSLB cannot prejudge your experience. Due to the number of applications that we receive and that we process every month, we do not have the staff time that would be necessary in order to prejudge your experience. We can only review your documents after you have applied for a license. Next, to get education credit, the coursework must be directly related to the work you will be doing as a contractor. Your education cannot be substituted for more than 3 years or 36 months of the required experience, meaning you will still need to have at least 1 year of practical experience if you get the full 36 months of education credit. To apply for education credit, you must provide CSLB written documentation. That means a copy of your apprenticeship completion certificate or the official technical school or college transcripts. Get those transcripts sent to you. Do not open the envelope. You're going to want to leave it sealed and include it with your CSLB application packet. Note that high school courses will not earn you any credit towards your contractor's license.
If you are looking to get education credit to meet the 4 years or 48 months of experience, you will need to get your license first. This is the most important slide of this entire workshop. This is the kind of credit you can expect to receive for your education. Note that for some areas, we are only giving you averages. You will see that your credit will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We are not going to be able to give you any more guidance than what you see on the slide. So, our best advice is do not rely on the combination of your experience and education credits to barely hit the 4-year experience mark. There is always the real possibility you will not get as much education credit as you were hoping. Let's go through the chart from the most credit you can get to the least. The most education credit you can get is for a Bachelor of Science degree in construction management. That degree will get you the full 36 months of credit. Next is a master's or bachelor's degree in business or a law degree. Any of those will get you 24 months of credit. An associate degree in science in construction management will get you 18 months credit. A bachelor degree in some other major will get you an average of 18 months credit. An associate degree in a major besides construction management will get you an average of 6 months credit. Credit for individual college classes are given on case-by-case basis, usually with a maximum of 6 months credit. Apprentice completion certificates will get you 24 to 36 months, depending on the classification of the program. For example, a sheet metal worker's apprenticeship gets you 24 months credit for the C20 HVAC and C43 sheet metal classifications only. A lineman apprenticeship gets you 36 months in C7 low voltage or C10 electrical classifications only. If you have transcripts for other technical training you have taken, you might be able to get some minimal credit as well. Again, don't use your education credits to try and squeak by the 4-year or 48-month requirement.
If you served in the military, some of that service might also be able to count as well. On the bottom of the page, you'll see a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program. You will be able to learn more using that link. The license qualifier also must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's test centers. One exam is on the California business law. The other is in the specific trade covered by your license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we will discuss a little bit later. And those licenses only require that the qualifier take the law and business exam. As we mentioned, the qualifier is the one who must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both of the exams, but it has to be in a very specific situation. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information about those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more into depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you're trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you are going to need to determine before applying for your license is which type of entity your business will be. There are 4 types. First is the sole ownership, where the owner or responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. Just about 2/3 of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second is a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. Just under 1/3 of our licenses are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. That's 2% of our licenses. Finally, a limited liability company or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or responsible managing employee may serve as qualifier. About 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about the different license classifications. A contractor license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filling out your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they fall under 3 different distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of this screen here. First is our Class A or general engineering contractors. These are the contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is our Class B or general building contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry, unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing and carpentry. There is no limitation on the B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final classes are C or specialty contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples from this class include our C10 electrical contractors, C20 HVAC contractors, C20 landscaping contractors, C36 plumbing contractors, C39 roofing contractors, C46 contractors, solar contractors, and C53 swimming pool contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under our C61 classification. These include the C61/D49 Tree Services Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
CSLB is excited to announce our first new licensing classification in a decade. It's called the B2 Residential Remodeling classification. The B2 allows contractors who don't have a structural framing experience to get a license with CSLB. Here is what interested applicants need to know. B2 license holders must engage in 3 or more trades or crafts on a project. B2 licensees also are limited to working on existing residential wood frame structures. There are some things B2 license holders cannot do. They cannot make structural alterations to load-bearing partitions and walls. They cannot install or extend electrical or plumbing systems. They can make modifications to existing systems, for example, install recessed lighting or alter plumbing for 2 shower heads. B2 licensees also cannot install or replace an HVAC system. Like all other CSLB licensees, B2 applicant must comply with CSLB experience, examination, license bond, and workers' compensation insurance requirements. CSLB is accepting application for B2 license now. We started June 1st. Exam dates will begin in August. If you have more questions about the B2 license, email the licensing division at licensing@cslb.ca.gov.
When you are ready to apply for a license, here are the 2 forms that you will need. On the left is the license application. On the right is a certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is your bonus link on the left side of the page, so be sure to download this presentation. We will give you a closer look at the different sections of these forms a little bit later.
Okay, now let's break down the steps of the application process. First, identify who will be the qualifier for your license. That person will be responsible for exercising direct supervision and control of the company. If you are using an RME or responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Be aware of companies you pay to connect you with a licensed qualifier. In some cases, these qualifiers are not they are in a different part of the state and cannot exercise the direct supervision needed, or they are unwilling or don't understand their role as a qualifier. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. There are 2 options. 1, application for original contractor license, and 2, application for original contractor license examination waiver, 7065. You have got links to both at the bottom of the page.
The next step is determining your company name. Take a look at the application for examples. Some things to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than what you are getting. For example, if you apply for a C36 plumbing license, you cannot have the name John Smith Plumbing Construction, Heating, and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name that you have registered with the California Secretary of State. The names of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application as well. You can also use what is called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. The main thing to remember here is that the DBA name cannot be misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and on all of your contracts. Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. We mentioned that a few minutes ago. There's a bonus link here at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge, and you want to be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic, but important. Proofread for any missing information. make sure that you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date your application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your examination. If so, complete a request form and submit that with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Next, let's take a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for a criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, all home improvement salespersons. If you are in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called live scan. You can get an updated list of live scan locations in California, broken down by county on the Attorney General's website. We have a link here, or you can simply go to the Attorney General's website and search for live scan. You will also see we have a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you are out of a state, it's going to be tough for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because you must submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. Those take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI and Department of Justice to process. When things settle down with COVID-19, you might want to consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you do have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction includes fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors that CSLB considers. They are the nature and severity of the crime, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would go back to 2014. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we look back 3 years from the application date, so to 2018. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications that we receive based on criminal convictions. You'll also note the bonus link to our fingerprint informational page.
Okay, along with the education credits we talked about earlier, this next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop, and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for applicants. It is how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years or 48 months of experience within the past 10 years in the classification for which he or she is applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2011. The experience must be at no less than a journeyman level or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified as opposed to a trainee and can perform trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience. Feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of your work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as you need to provide the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure that the person that is certifying your work experience describes the actual work that you performed and also the dates in which you performed them. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate your work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are just examples.
At the top of this chart is the classification and type of experience you're trying to demonstrate. This first example is journey person experience. The overall theme we will keep repeating is the more specific the description, the better. The work experience form should be completed by your certifier, someone who has knowledge and has observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. That person does not have to be a licensed contractor.
Okay, so our first example is for a Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work. So something like this. Bob performed rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something like this. Residential general building trades. For four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and/or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at a job site performing rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something generic, something like this. Residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation on how you arrived at that supervisor level. For example, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Something unacceptable would be something like this. Residential general building trades. So you get the idea. We want you to be very descriptive. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out of state, military, on federal lands, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, a foreperson, or a supervising employee. A tip: be very specific about your duties and the employment circumstances. Our next example is going to be for a C27 landscaping contractor. First, let's talk about the experience for a journeyman level. The best type of description would be something like this. Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, and planting. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a four-person would be something like this. Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description would be something generic like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at that supervisor level. The best description would be something like this. As a construction lead on multiple projects, Jane supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would be something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, and planting. Finally, for our out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for the general building contractors applies. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as for the military, work done on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe the duties and your employment circumstances. Now, by law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all of the information provided on at least 3% of the applications that we receive. Our next 3 slides are going to be a rundown of the acceptable documentation that you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application is selected and you are asked to provide additional documentation. This supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You only need to provide this information if CSLB staff requests it. On the lower right of your screen, you will see a link to this publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. So if you look at this chart here, you can see that the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your work experience if you were self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need to use if you are applying for a Class B general building contractor license and you want to use owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirements. Here is the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on that link there to view and print this publication. Here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you are asked to provide it in the future. Remember, the whole point is that you're trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB staff may contact the certifier of your experience or other parties to verify the experience.
One other note, CSLB gets more than 1,000 applications each month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They have got 2 pieces of advice for you. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take a trade test by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you will need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, double check it to make sure you did not miss anything. Be sure to sign and date it as well. And don't forget to include all important $330 application fee. You will pay the $200 initial licensing fee after you pass your exam or exams. Then put your application packet in the mail to CSLB or hand deliver to one of our public counters. We've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen with our office locations.
So now that we've gone through the information that you're going to need to include, here's a closer look at the application so you know where the information goes. This is section 1, and this is where you're going to list your business name. Remember that when you're selecting a business name, you have to make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classification and also with the entity that you are applying for, and it cannot be misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that the name that you provide in this section matches exactly the business name that you registered with the Secretary of State. In line number 2 is where you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and the phone number that you list here in section 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. Next is section 2. Here you will select your business entity. If you are applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number that's going to be provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure you pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifiers information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of the construction operations. The qualifier is also the person who takes the exams. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you're going to be the only person on the license, and you would list 100% here. On line number 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements, so you will need to make sure that you have listed all positions, depending on the entity that you are selecting. You can find more information on this on pages 2 through 4 of our application instructions. Line number 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, You will need to indicate who's going to be the responsible managing officer or employee, who's going to be the president, the secretary, and the treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of our application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you'll need to make additional copies of this page here and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you'll want to make sure that all personnel that you have listed with the Secretary of State must be listed on this section here. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application here in section 4. Section 5 is just a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover those here, but they are just simple yes or no questions. Section 6 is where you may be granted credit towards your 4 years of experience requirement based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. Get the sealed transcripts sent to you, then include them with your application packet. Do not have the program send the transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take a chance that in case we're not able to match them up with your application. Just have them mailed to you, keep them sealed, and send them in with your application. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. The credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning just because you have a 2-year college degree doesn't necessarily mean that you will be granted 2 years of credit towards your experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed the education. That 10-year time frame doesn't apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in another language other than English, it does have to be translated and evaluated. Now we're going to talk about the different sections on the certification of work experience. Part number 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you're going to list the information for your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, just make sure you mark the box here in line number 2. If you are applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own property, make sure you mark this box here on line number 4. Part 2 will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or a full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you were working on a part-time basis, you're only going to receive 50% of the credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years to meet that 48-month requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties in CSLB's Description of Classification booklet, available on our website. Do not copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete the section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certification is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. If you notice line number 7, they can also check a box to say, are they your employer, a journeyman? Are they a contractor, a fellow employee, a union representative? Are they a foreman or supervisor or a business associate? Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification. The next one we're going to be discussing is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience form. This form only needs to be completed if you're applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on your property. The experience has to be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, or other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number here on line number 6. On line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project that you performed. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades they performed. Remember, we're looking for information that is complete and accurate as possible.
With all the information Anna just covered, this is a good time to remind you that we are recording this workshop. We will post a video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch it in case there is anything you missed. Okay, so you've got your application submitted. How do you check the status of the application? Here are two resources. First is the secure check. You will need your application fee number and contractor PIN number to get an update. We will send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way to check is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on and know that if the date shown is after the date we likely received your paperwork, it's likely we are busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day, and we process them in the order they are received. So be sure to take extra time getting the application right so we don't have to send it back to you to correct and then have to start processing your application again. When your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks prior to your exam date. CSLB test centers are currently open. They were closed from December to February for COVID-19. CSLB has 7 test centers throughout California and encourages candidates to take their exams at the nearest test center.
If you're an applicant whose first language isn't English and you don't feel confident taking your exam in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply is going to read you the exam questions. Question number 16 on the application asks if you would like to use a translator to complete your exam. The translator must be pre-approved by CSLB in advance. You cannot just show up on your test date to the test center with somebody ready to translate the exam there for you. When you have an exam date, make sure you do not miss it. If you fail to appear for your exam, you're going to have to pay a $60 non-refundable fee to reschedule. The fee may be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams. Included in each study guide, you're going to find a list of sections and topics that are going to be covered on the exam. They also include sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for your examination. These study guides are available online on our website, and there's a bonus link to them right there on the bottom of the screen.
Here is a quick look at 2 of those study exams. The first is the law and business exam, which all qualifiers must take, no matter which license classification, including the D-Series limited classes. You can see the guide contains a breakdown of examination topics, some test strategies, sample questions, and resources that were used to help create that exam. You will see the same format on the B General Building Study Guide. We would recommend that you really pay attention to exam content here, especially how we have broken down what percentage of questions there will be on each of the 5 topics on the exam. On the lower right of both these 2 slides, you will see bonus links to the actual study guide, as well as a link to the complete list of study guides.
Again, our test centers are open. We do have COVID-19 procedures in place for applicants on test day. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. You must wear a face mask or other face covering. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We also produced a short video called What to Expect on Your Test Date. You can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen here.
You will take your exam on a touchscreen computer. Before starting, you will see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You will also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about that question. You will get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce that amount of time you get to complete your exam. You will get your results at the end of the exam. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the exam. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time.
So after you pass your exams, what happens next? First, you will need to pay the $200 initial licensing fee, which will be good for 2 years. You will also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you will need to file the required $15,000 contractor bond and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you selected. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you're going to have employees, you'll need to have workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. See our website for more information on that. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. If you don't have employees, you're going to file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB, and you can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you are going to solicit business, talk to potential customers, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask to see your pocket license. If you are going to have a salesperson working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, June 4, 2021, will expire on June 30th, 2023. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need, so you won't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of other important deadlines you're going to want to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or if you change your business address. Your renewal notice is going to be mailed to the address of record that we have on file. So if you're not there anymore, you're probably not going to receive it. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, but especially if it involves a qualifier of your license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson to solicit, sell, negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. These people are called home improvement salespersons, or HIS. Without a HIS, the official personnel of record on a license are the only ones who can solicit, sell, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, licensed qualifiers, partners, corporate officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. a home improvement salesperson can work for more than one contractor. The licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate a home improvement salesperson with their license.
So there are a couple of exceptions that you want to note. First, are those who only schedule appointments for contractors or registered HIS. And bona fide service and repair people. Those are the folks that you call out for repairs, including things like air conditioning or heating and plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by you, the homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and now they want to sell you a new HVAC system, then yes, they would have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ an unregistered salesperson. That would subject you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might even get a citation, or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. We have a bonus link at the bottom of this page if you want to look into the actual code section of law. Okay, so that's our presentation. Now we have time to answer any questions you may have. So we'll take turns now answering the questions that we received so far. Okay, first question says, do I apply first to determine how much credit I have and how much credit I would need? So yes, as we mentioned, we wouldn't be able to review any transcripts ahead of time. You would have to apply. So once you apply, you want to mail in your sealed transcripts along with your application. A technician will let you know how much credit they are able to give you. The next question, Fode, is, it says a maximum of 36 educational credits. What is the minimum? What's the minimum they can get? The max is going to be 36 months, but what's the minimum they could get?
And the minimum would be, like we said, if there is like individual classes, we have to look at in there to see how much credit we can give. If they are not related in any way, it could be 0, could be 1 month. So, if there is no degree there, then it could be nothing.
Right, it could be 0. So
Yeah.
there is a range, anywhere from 0 to 36 months. When is the next exam? So we do test every day. We mentioned we have 7 test centers throughout the state. So you will be assigned the one that's closest to you based on your zip code. And so we are testing. Well, they're open and we test every day. If I get a license, it says, if I get a license as a sole proprietor, can I eventually change it or if I convert my business to a corporation or an LLC, or would I have to apply for a new license?
If you get your sole owner license and then later on wants to convert it to a corporation or LLC, once you register those corporation LLC, you submit application for original contractor license examination waiver 7065, and then request. There is a page on the last page that you can request to reissue your sole owner license to the corporation or LLC.
So if someone worked in a landscaping business with the owner, would they be considered journeyman or fellow employee or employer? Okay, so the CSLB considers journeyman when you are able to complete a project from beginning to end with no supervision. So if you feel that you are capable enough and somebody is willing to sign off saying that you would be able to work without any supervision, and you have for at least 4 years, that would count as journeyman level experience. How do I apply for a C46? So the process that we discussed today is good for all of our classifications. So you can go back and review the presentation, but it is exactly the same regardless of which classification you are applying for. Okay, Fode, it says, how much credit for a BA of architecture?
Well, we cannot, like individually, we not try to in this, forum to individually say how much of credit you get. Depends on classification of those information. So please submit your application with a copy of your transcripts, and we will let you know how much you will get.
Right. Do you need a certification or a license to become an HIS? No, you would just need to register with us. An HIS, as we discussed, is a home improvement salesperson. So if you are being hired by a company, a licensed contractor to be an HIS, you would just need to register yourself as an HIS. And you can find that application on our website. Is there a specific license or specialty category to apply for window washing? So what about window washing?
Again, I recommend all those questions regarding the classifications and the trades related to them would be referred to classifications, that's plural, at cslb.ca.gov. That classifications at cslb.ca.gov. We'll be happy to answer your questions there.
Mm-hmm. And also you can refer to our description of classification booklet that we mentioned too, and we provided a link during our presentation. We have a booklet that gives you a description for every single classification that we provide. So you would be able to read what kind of jobs, what kind of duties you can perform based on the classification. So you might want to check that out as well, and you can also send that email. If I am licensed, if I have a helper working with me, does he also need a license? So if you're licensed and your helper is, we would consider that an employee, they have to be your employee, they would not need a license. If you're, let's say you're licensed and in the appropriate classification, and you want to sub some work out to a helper, then you would have a subcontractor. Yes, that person would have to have a license. But if it's somebody who is helping you for the day, then that we would consider, CSLB considers that person your employee. So you want to make sure you have workers' comp coverage for that person. But no, they're under your supervision, so they would not need a license. I am an out-of-state applicant. Are the testing centers only in California, or can I use a PS1 in my home state? So if he's applying out of state, does he have to come to California to take the test, Fode?
Yes, currently all our test centers in California.
What kind of license do I need to get if I provide interior painting ceramic tiles? So again, we mentioned about the classification booklet. You're going to want to refer to that. C33 is our painting contractor license, so you might want to check out the C33, see if that applies. But again, like Fode mentioned, if you have, after reading the description, you still are not sure or you have questions, we do have a classification deputy that you can email. And as Fode mentioned, their email address is classifications with an S at cslb.ca.gov. And what you're going to want to do is just provide them a little information about what type of work you're going to be doing, what is going to be the scope of your contract, and then they will let you know what the appropriate classification would be. I am an out-of-state applicant. Yes, so we already answered that one. I have 2 years of experience and 2 in metal stud framing, my current trade. I want to get licensed in concrete. Do I have to switch trades? So in order to get a concrete license, you would have to show that you have 4 years of experience in concrete within the last 10 years. So yes, you would have to show 4 years of journeyman level experience in concrete. My boss only paid me in cash, and I did not start filing taxes until last year. How else can I demonstrate my work experience if I get asked to? So cash paid, Fode, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, please submit the application. We will contact your certifier, or we may require other folks who have observed you do the work. We may interview them and go from there. So please submit the application. We work through it.
Right. It's very common that people do receive cash pay. We know that happens. Or, if you were self-employed and your clients paid you in cash, it might be difficult, but it isn't impossible. So like folks say, we do encourage you to continue to submit your application. You can refer back to the documentation that we accept. We talked about, we have a handout. You can either see it in our application, in our workshop here that we presented today, or it's also available on our website. And it's a list of what kind of documentation we would accept from you in order, if you were selected, if we requested it from you, okay? Does international work experience at construction site count? So as long as we would consider international work experience, but we would need to be able to verify it. You have to have somebody who is willing to fill out a work experience certificate. The same rule applies, 4 years within the last 10 years, and it would have to be verifiable. We would have to be able to talk to that person to verify the information they are providing. Is there a fee associated with the HIS association? If so, what is the fee to register as an HIS? Fode, do you know what the fee is to register as an HIS?
Getting the certificate HIS, that's the $83 application to get the registration. But associating an HIS, home improvement salesperson, to a license currently, that does not have any fee attached to it.
So $83 to register as an HIS.
Correct.
Okay. I'm not familiar with bonds. Does this mean I have to pay $15,000 after I pass my exam? Very good question. So a bond works like a car insurance. You don't have to have $15,000. You don't have to pay $15,000. It's just, you would go to a bond company of your choosing, and the limit that we require is $15,000, just like your car insurance. So they will give you a premium, a monthly premium or an annual premium. They'll tell you how much you have to pay in order to provide that coverage for you. And it really is a protection for you, because the way the bond works, let's say a homeowner is not happy, a consumer is not happy with the work that was provided, and they claim that there was poor workmanship. Instead of coming after you, they can go to your bond company and file a complaint. And the bond company should send out their own inspector and determine if indeed, in fact, there was poor workmanship. If there wasn't, then they would deny the claim. But if there was, then they will pay out, a certain amount that they determine. And that way the consumer doesn't come after you, they don't sue you, they go through the bond company. So it is a protection for you. But like I said, it's not something that you have to have the $15,000. It's just the coverage amount that we require. So shop around and see, if you can get different prices on the bond. Next question. Do I need to obtain a license if I provide custom mural painting, usually for the interior of the building? Fode, do they need to obtain a license if they provide custom mural painting?
Yes, that would be also the painting. But again, if you please send the details of what you do to classifications deputy, we will have a better answer for you. But that would require a C33 classification.
Do you have any recommended courses of study for the law portion of the exam, like in-class or virtual resources rather than just written material? So we are not associated with any of the classes. We do realize that there are companies that offer courses that they say that will help you pass the business and law exam. All CSLB offers is our study guide that we went over today. The resources on the back, that's all that we offer. Some companies that we've heard from applicants that some companies really do help them. Others we've heard that are very expensive will charge thousands of dollars, and not one of the questions that they covered was on the exam. So just so you know, we are constantly changing our exam questions. We have a large bank of exam questions. So just because you took an exam today, didn't pass, you come back in 3 weeks, it may not be the same questions. You may not see one of the questions that you had 3 weeks ago. So because we do constantly change out our questions. So no, it's not required that you go to a school, and no, we are not associated with any, so we wouldn't be able to recommend one over the other. Next question. How would self-employment experience qualify someone to apply for a license if the work was done without a license in the first place? So Fode, how does if they're self-employed, how can that help them get their license?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of folks are still doing the work out there without the license. We understand that. And we are not, the application process is not to put that under the questions. It is just to verify their experience. And there is ways, even the folks who did the self-employed without the license, there are tax documents and, invoices and whatnot. So we understand that the work may not be, done per the regulations. But again, as long as it has been under journey level, we can accept that.
So it looks like that's the last of our questions. So we want to thank you then for joining us. If you have any other questions about your application, we always encourage you to drop us an email to our licensing division. Their email is right there, licensing@cslb.ca.gov. Again, licensing@cslb.ca.gov. If at some point you need to reschedule your examination, you can get that process started by sending an email to exams@cslb.ca.gov. We've also put together a list of available resources for women considering a career in construction. If you haven't already, be sure to download this presentation to be able to see those resources. You can download the presentation using the green banner on the top of our homepage, www.cslb.ca.gov. If you're watching the archive video of our workshop on our YouTube page, you'll find a link to the presentation down below.
We welcome your comments or topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email to social@cslb.ca.gov. A special thanks to our licensing division and public affairs office for their help on this workshop. The Get Licensed to Bid workshop is a copyrighted production of the California Contractors State Licensing Board. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.